fellow seekers of mystery and justice. I'm Kitty, your guide into the enigmatic realm of New England. Welcome to Mine, Missing, Murdered, Unidentified in New England, where we delve into the chilling tales that have haunted the corners of Connecticut, Maine, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, and Vermont. Prepare to embark on a journey through the shadows of the last decade, from the start of 2010 to the close of 2020. Our stories, sourced from the depths of history, are as diverse as the New England landscapes they unfold in. Some episodes will lead us on an extensive exploration, while others may be swift glimpses. For these cases often shroud themselves in secrecy, leaving us with only morsels of information to feast upon. Within these episodes, every word, every theory, and yes, even every mistake and misstep is a product of my own relentless pursuit of the truth. I promise to keep you informed with updates and correct any mistakes along the way. While I won't give trigger warnings for the wounds we uncover, after all, they are an essential part to the narrative. I'll be mindful with the more sensitive topics. We'll issue trigger warnings when discussing subjects of suicide, animal loss, domestic violence, and others, to ensure a respectful and considerate journey through the mysteries that await. So, dear listener, fasten your seatbelt and let's explore the shadows of New England together. July 1st, 2011. 38-year-old Marquita Lenae Jones is an endangered missing person. She has been missing since she was 28. Marquita is a black female with brown hair and brown eyes, is between 5 feet and 5 feet 2 inches, and was last seen between 100 and 110 pounds. Marquita goes by the nicknames Love and QUITA LUV. Marquita also goes by the names KEIGHA and KECIA. Marquita has a scar above her left eye that spans down to her chin and a scar on her right wrist. Marquita has a history of drug use. However, it is uncertain if drugs are involved in Marquita's disappearance. Marquita was last seen in mid-2011 on or near the West Street area of the Hill neighborhood in New Haven, Connecticut, a dangerous area of the city, according to the sources, and may be in the Hill neighborhood of New Haven now. There was a rumor that Marquita left Connecticut to get out of trouble with probation. However, there is no evidence to prove this claim to be true. Please call 1-203-946-6304 with any information. July 3rd, 2011. Raul Ernesto Vera, resident of 75 King Street, Springfield, Mass., was a 38-year-old self-employed barber who enjoyed football, was a father of 4, brother to 7, grandfather, uncle, and father figure to his girlfriend's children. Raul's girlfriend referred to him as mi bonbon de chocolat. Raul was a kind-hearted man with a sense of humor. Our brother had a heart of gold, said Selena Saez, 41, of her little brother. He would give you the shirt off his back without thinking. If he had $1, you would have 50 cents of it. Raul's sister said Raul lost his way after their mother, Ada Marie Vera, died 10 years prior. Ada had been an activist in the Latino community. Ada was also Raul's guide in life. Once Ada passed, Raul claimed he had nothing to live for. Nicknamed Baby, Raul had a lengthy criminal record with gang ties and drug charges, and had been released from prison 3 months prior to being murdered for breaking and entering. Raul was shot 3 times, struck in the neck once on the evening of July 3rd, 2011 at roughly 7:15 p.m. at 66 Lincoln St, Springfield, Mass., in the McKnight Neighborhood. Witnesses thought the gunshots were M80 fireworks due to holiday weekend festivities. No other information is available. please call 1-413-787-6355 with any information. July 4th, 2011. Victor Gomes was born on March 13th, 1978. He was a 33-year-old father of two, one 14-year-old and one 18-year-old. Victor was a hard worker who was employed at Stop and Shop for nearly 20 years. Victor emigrated to the U.S. from Portugal at age 14 and ended up being a resident of Randolph, Mass. Victor was a Madison Park High School grad and attended 2 years of college. Victor was into motorcycles and soccer, was athletic and flirtatious. Victor's mom, Jesuina Diogo, was stoic when Victor was buried. He was her second son taken from Earth in less than 1 year. Victor was there in her comfort when his brother Ricardo died in an accidental fall in London just before his 30th birthday. With Victor's death, Jesuina wasn't able to cry anymore. A tragic fact, she relayed in Portuguese. Victor had no criminal record and no ties to gang, though his life was allegedly taken in retribution by a gang from another area. Victor was slain in a triple shooting at 34 Norton Street in Dorchester, Mass, near Bowdoin Street. This shooting took steps away from Victor's grandmother's house. Please call 1-800-494-TIPS, 1-617-343-4470, or text TIPS to crime. July 4th, 17-year-old James Coakley was shot on the sidewalk in front of his house on Hollander Street on July 4th, 2011. Before dying from his injuries, James said to his dad, who had run to his side, "Daddy, I know who it was. I saw them." James died without saying anything more. In a touching tribute, hundreds of people, including teenagers, parents of teens, and people who knew or worked with James's parents, lined the streets near St. Mark's Church in Roxbury, waiting to pay their respects. This just shows how much of an impact one death has on a community. Think of how much an impact would happen if the perpetrator were caught. Please call 1-800-494-TIPS, 1-617-343-4470, or text TIPS to crime. July 5th, 2011. The partial skeletal remains of an unidentified 50 to 70-year-old female were located in Hartford County, Connecticut. No other information is available. Please call 1-860-679-3980 with any information. July 5th, 2011. Cousins LaShawn Disco Washington, aged 39, and Joey Winston, aged 26, were murdered as they were leaving an Independence Day weekend backyard barbecue at their grandmother's house in Roxbury, Massachusetts. Winston feared for his safety, drove everywhere, didn't walk, and told people his time was running out. LaShawn's mom died at the age of 4, and he was raised by his dad. LaShawn had been in jail for 5 years at the age of 17, almost 20 years prior, something that haunted him for the rest of his life. This fact affected his jobs as an adult. He would omit his history on job applications to get hired, as he had had a clean history aside from this blemish. LaShawn would work for a few weeks to a few months, and then would get fired when the truth about his criminal history came out. LaShawn's dad, Timothy Washington, said, "These kids have been written off. These kids have no other resource. Once they get that Corey, that criminal record, that's it as far as the job market is concerned. They're rejects," he said. "So what are they going to do?" They got to turn to other resources for income. And I think a lot of times they take their frustrations out on each other. Eventually, LaShawn was honest about his criminal history, landed a good security bouncing gig to support his children that came with good pay and benefits. On the evening of July 5th, LaShawn had his girlfriend and their 5-month-old daughter, one of the 4 children he had. He said goodbye to them, then watched them drive home in one car, and drove off with his cousin Joey in another vehicle. They left the family, and that's when they got shot. We don't know much else. We just know that they got shot at 11:30. One got shot in the head, and the other in the neck. As Joey and LaShawn sat in the car, another car approached at Columbia Street and killed LaShawn and Joey in an execution-style murder. Joey had been the target as he had gang ties to the local Roxbury gang, and LaShawn had been an unfortunate collateral damage of this violence. Someone ran up to the car they were sitting in, fired, and the car lurched forward into a building, crashing into it. Instead of directing their anger towards the killer, the family directed their anger towards the mayor and the city. They were angry that there were not more resources being allocated to keep people safe late at night in Roxbury and Dorchester. Timothy Washington, LaShawn's dad, tried to get a petition going to get information from law enforcement about the investigation, as law enforcement had closed communications with the family about the status and any developments within the investigation. It is unknown if the petition collected enough signatures or whether or not it was successful. LaShawn's memory is still alive, and his online memorial, as of 2021, had a member popping in, saying, "Big cuz, where did the time go? I can still see that gap and hear that loud Aggie laugh. Lol. The family ain't been the same since y'all left, but I know you and Joe are rocking the heavens. I love you." Please call 1-800-494-TIPS, 1-617-343-4470, or text TIPS to crime. July 7th, 2011. Dominic T. Gurrier had 3 sisters, was a Dorchester native, and was starting a business with his dad, buying and selling auctioned-off cars. Though Dominic was known to authorities, his father, Yvonne, said that Dominic was staying out of trouble and that he didn't have current troubles with anybody. On Thursday night, July 7th, 2011, someone murdered Dominic at the corners of Mountain and Mascot Streets in Dorchester, Mass. Like many of these cases, no other information is available. Please call 1-800-494-TIPS or 1-617-343-4470 with any information. July 12th, 2011. Doris Dolly Roma Forney Alzik had a unique ability to bring joy where it previously did not exist. A lifelong Springfield, Massachusetts resident, residing at 100 Phillips Avenue, 81-year-old Dolly was full of life. Born on September 27th, 1929, someone murdered Dolly on July 12th, 2011. The garden surrounding Dolly's home was what Dolly took pride in her sunset years. These same flowers overgrew and became neglected after Dolly's murder. Prior to her lovely home and garden, Dolly worked for 47 years at GNC Merriam-Webster Publishing Company and would occasionally visit coworkers after her retirement. Dolly was a reader and enjoyed football. Dolly had a great sense of humor, a big heart, and was kind. The way that Dolly died was unusual, and there are differing stories as to how she was discovered. One such story is when Evelyn Pedraza tried knocking on the door and waking Dolly up, but to no avail. Evelyn, Dolly's best friend of 19 years, was the one to call 911 after discovering Dolly sitting in a chair, partially burned, reading her Bible. Another version of this tale is that sanitation workers saw a fire at Dolly's home and called authorities. Yet another version is that a delivery person noticed the smoke and fire and had to break down the door to get to the blaze. Regardless, the fire took place at 3 p.m. and caused $60,000 worth of damage to the property, along with claiming Dolly's life. There was no evidence that the home was broken into prior to the fire. Evelyn lived across the street from Dolly, and they would talk of many things, mainly gardening and showing their affections. Dolly was an animal lover, had 4 cats, and fed the outside critters. Dolly was survived by her sister, cousins, and friends. Dolly's death is considered a homicide, though the actual cause of death has never been released. If you know who set fire, please call 1-800-682-9229 for a $5,000 reward as reporting arson as part of the Arson Watch program. And if you know who murdered Dolly, please call 1-413-787-6355. July 15th, 2011. The unidentified partial skeletal remains of an adult pre-60-year-old male, thought to be between ages of 40 to 50, of unknown height, weight, or ethnicity, were discovered in Hartford County, Connecticut. The estimated year of death was 2011. No comparisons have been made. Please call 1-860-679-3980 with any information. July 19th, 2011. Oscar Castro was 26 when an unknown person shot him in the face outside of 104 High Street in Holyoke, Mass., also known as the Clover Cafe. Oscar was likely not a patron at the Clover Cafe when shot, as it was 1:30 a.m. on July 19th, 2011. This was not the first time the Clover Cafe was caught in the midst of controversy, though I couldn't find out what other controversies entailed. Oscar was killed by a member of La Familia gang, though he was not in a gang. La Familia had it out for him, according to law enforcement. Preliminary investigation showed that Oscar may have been chased to the corner of High and Lyman when shot. After the shooting, security guards at the scene were knocked over by Oscar's supporters clamoring to get through to the ambulance doors to Oscar. Police don't think that Oscar's murder is related to the murder that occurred less than 1 day later when 3 brothers murdered Reynaldo Fuentes. Please call 1-413-322-6900 or 1-413-505-5993 if you have any information. July 31st, 2011. Rich Richie King was 22, awesome, full of energy, loving, caring, and a cheerleader with no known gang ties. Rich worked 2 jobs, one with his uncle cleaning houses, and the other as the night manager of the subway near Rich's death scene. Even people who encountered him at his job at Subway thought highly of Rich, saying in an online memorial, "I don't know Richard personally, but I had many interactions with him at his job, and he was the sweetest and most professional person at work. I was impressed with his confidence and the way he treated the customers and coworkers. I saw his pic online, and I prayed it wasn't the same person. It was. I'm so sad. Sorry for your loss." Someone stabbed Rich repeatedly, somewhere between 3 and 4 a.m., and Rich was discovered at 4:40 a.m. at 25 Trottier Court near Lenox and Camden Streets, housing development in Lower Roxbury, which is in the south end of Boston. Rich was found in a pool of blood with his head facing a parking lot. Authorities say that Rich's murder was for more than just a robbery and was likely targeted. Earlier in the evening of July 31st, 2011, Rich and his cousin were drinking at a club in the theater district, and after leaving and walking together for a few blocks, parted ways. Rich going one way on foot towards Trottier Court, his cousin, the other, catching a cab towards Dorchester. There were more people at night than normal. The night of his murder, Rich had asked his mom to wake him up in order to go to work on time. Though when Melinda, his mom, went to wake him up, he wasn't there. Rich's mom, Melinda Tharps, was at work at St. Elizabeth's Hospital when she got the call about Rich's untimely death. Rich had been deceased for hours by the time Melinda was contacted. Melinda and Rich had a special relationship, a strong relationship, full of mutual love and respect. Rich was Melinda's cheerleader and motivator, and Rich told his mom how much he loved and admired her and looked up to her, as she had had 2 jobs as a single mom of 4 children, going to school to make the best life for herself and for her children. According to a YouTube comment, Rich was a father at the time of his slaying. Rich's tragic story was broadcast as an unsolved case 3 and 5 years after his murder. Melinda says that she forgives Rich's killer, but that she still wants justice. It has been said that there are witnesses out there who are likely afraid to come forward. It has been over a decade, so if you know, or you are Rich's killer, please come forward at 1-800-494-8477. July 31st, 2011. Wilson Alexander Jr. was shot along with 3 other individuals at 40 Ames Street in Dorchester, Massachusetts on July 31st, 2011. One of the men was found at the scene, 2 were found nearby on Talbot Avenue, and the 4th victim was found 1.5 miles away, inside a vehicle in the Grove Hall section of Roxbury. At 12:20 a.m., these 4 people in their late teens to early 20s were shot at. They were struck and all fled, but Wilson, as his injuries were too significant. There had been 2 killings and 1 survivor with the weapon used in Wilson's murder. On June 27, 2011, a 4-year-old was shot in the back as an innocent bystander and survived. And on July 31, 2011, Wilson Alexander Jr., visiting Franklin Field at Harambe Field after a funeral, was attacked by a rival gang. And lastly, on October 3, 2011, 23-year-old Paula Jacobs, who will be featured in depth in October's episode, was murdered at 39 Dearborn Street. Please call 1-800-494-8477 with any information. There is a $1,000 reward. August 6th, 2011. Rakita Smalls was born on April 15th, 1989, was 22, known for her smile and work ethic as a Stop and Shop employee in Westport, Connecticut, and was a 2007 basic high school graduate. Iroquois, aka Iraq, was a West Hill High School grad, a father to a daughter named Dynasty, and an uncle to at least 1 nephew, and was only home for a few short months from an 8-year stint in prison for robbery, when he and friend Rakita Smalls were senselessly murdered. Iraq and Rakita, both Bridgeport, Connecticut residents, were sitting in Iraq's black Honda sedan on Avenue B in Norwalk, Connecticut, when they were gunned down on August 6, 2011. The car was faced away from the curb and looked like the driver was either pulling away or parallel parking with the passenger side window was shot out. A neighbor looked outside with binoculars to determine what had happened and discovered Rakita with a gunshot wound to the head. Avenue B residents reported a black woman slumped over in the front seat of a black car with a broken window, unresponsive, shortly before 8 a.m. Original analysis couldn't determine if this tragedy was a murder-suicide or a double homicide, and thankfully it was eventually determined to be a double homicide. Lead detective Christopher Imparato said he wouldn't be surprised if there were people not on the police department's radar that possess vital information. And if people do have a fear of coming forward, a fear of retaliation, it's completely understandable. It's something they've run into numerous times during the investigation. But reassure, their identity and their safety is paramount to us. That comes first and foremost, Imparato said. The inner circle of friends allegedly know who the killer is, yet they remain tight-lipped. "I am the mother of a murdered child," said Natasha Smalls. Her name was Rakita Smalls. She wasn't just a girl found dead in a car. She's my daughter. I'm asking anyone who has information to please come forward. Winter Alston, Iraq's sister, identified her brother's belongings in the evening he and Rakita were killed. When Iraq was killed, his daughter was taken from dance class and held in suspense as to why, until her begging and pleading led to her being told that her dad was killed. According to law enforcement, there is an unnamed person of interest in the case. There was at one point a $50,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the person or persons responsible for these senseless murders. Some outlets have expressed that law enforcement has been less than diligent in their solving of this case. However, anyone with information about the killings can call Imparato at 1-203-854-3190, the Norwalk Police Detective Bureau Information Line at 1-203-854-3011, or the anonymous Norwalk Police Tip Line at 1-203-854-3111. If you have any questions, concerns, complaints, please email me at minepodcast@gmail.com. All one word, and mine is spelled with 2 M's, 2 I's, 1 N, 1 E. Please include what your message is about in the subject line. Later, y'all!